we have done is here we have today's session, we have tried to basically list down the top 10 common techniques are there that we think are important. Again, these are just the common ones which we use in our day-to-day life, but there are a lot many techniques available. Some of them, of course, because we are already playing a role of a product owner or business analyst, maybe we are already aware of it, we are already using it in our day-to-day life, and some of the techniques might be new. But again, there is no hard and fast rule when we talk about techniques, right? So if you are a product owner, there's no hard and fast rule that you have to follow all the techniques which are available. Not at all. Depending on your product that you're dealing with, depending on the project, probably the business, the what kind of project you are dealing with, you can easily pick and choose the techniques which you feel is suitable for your particular project. So sometimes you might be working for, a very complicated banking application. So the tools and techniques that you would select for it would be very much different than a person who would be using certain tools and techniques for an e-commerce application. So it completely differs from the type of products that we deal with. And yes, so today's session webinar will just go through some common ones. But of course, there are around 30 plus techniques available, and IIB also has around, they prescribe around 30 plus techniques in the product owner techniques bit. So getting into it, one of the very common one is the backlog refinement, something that every time, we keep doing. Um, so it's basically used to ensure that we have enough details and clarity of the work items into the backlog so that the delivery team can pick up. So basically, backlog refinement is something that it is recommended that, okay, if I've just started a new project, right? If I've just a new Scrum team, maybe I would have this backlog refinement meetings very often because my product backlog is not stable because it's completely new project or new product that I'm building. Again, on the other hand, if probably my product has already become stable, right? It's been quite a long time that the project is going on and the product backlog is stable. Maybe there aren't any big features that we are working on at this point in time. In that case, you might not have these backlog refinement meetings very frequently. So it completely depends upon what kind of product what state your product is in. And based on that, you can decide the frequency, like when you want to have or how frequent you want to have the backlog refinement meeting. So usually this happens with the stakeholders or probably your business owners. The product owner is present and some key team members also are there. And then you try to prioritize the backlog. You try to prioritize one feature over the other. So the high priority features are always put on top of the backlog and the rest would actually be on the lower side. And then the top 3 or the top 5 stories, whichever you have prioritized, you pick them one by one and try to detail it down. In case there are any questions that you want to raise to the business, you can always do that in such meetings. So my main intention to have these backlog refinement meeting first is to ensure that, okay, your backlog is prioritized. At least you are ready for the next sprint that is going to start. So you have a prioritized backlog, and of course the couple of items from the top of the backlog are detailed down. It has all the information that is needed so that in the sprint planning meeting, right, the development team doesn't face any challenges. Now, if there are certain questions that are raised into the backlog refinement meeting, those can be definitely asked to the business owners or stakeholders. So, you do get that gap or the time frame because from the, by the time they come for the sprint planning, maybe these questions are already answered. So that gives you a time or a buffer as well. So that is all about or the main idea of the backlog refinement meeting. And as I said, so this is not a one-time activity. This has to be set on a particular frequency depending upon your state of the product. And it is always, again, not necessary that if I've prioritized these features, as the term says, agile, we are in an agile environment, so requirements keep changing. The market conditions are very much dynamic, I would say. So that is one of the reasons why it is very much important and essential that we keep doing these backlog refinement meetings quite often. Moving on to the next technique is again a very common one, which is the minimum viable product. Now, talking about the minimum viable product, what we try to do here is like we try and identify the bare minimum set of features that are required, right, to release. So it's usually MVP or the minimum viable product release happens. It's basically the first release when you're just starting with developing a particular product. So, for example, if I'm building an e-commerce site, right? So what bare minimum features needs to be there in the first release so that the product is usable. So what my main intention to do this MVP is like, I just ship uh, the feature or probably ship the product fast into the market with bare minimum features so that it is usable, and then from the end users I collect feedback and then I try to enhance the product that I'm building. So probably giving the example of the e-commerce site, right? So maybe I would, if I'm trying to, understand the MVP of it, maybe I would want to have a product listing page, option to select or view the product, then select the product and add it into the cart, and maybe for the, and then do a checkout. And maybe for the payment bit, I can do a cash on delivery. So, top 3 to 4 features which are very much important so that at least the product can be used end to end with the bare minimum functionalities. And then of course you start building on top of it once you try get feedback from the end users. So usually this approach is very much helpful when you do have a time and of course budget constraint, because I don't have a lot of time, maybe 6 months or so to spend on creating the product. I want to ship the product as soon as possible, maybe just within 3 months of time frame. And of course I don't want to spend a huge sum or a lot of money into it at this point. I just built a very bare minimum structure of it and then keep building on top of it based on the feedback that I get from the end users. Okay. Next, coming to personas, again a very good technique, I would say, which gives you a feel of the different stakeholders or the different end users who will be using your product. So they are basically fictional characters, and which tells you the way the users are interacting with the system, right? So that is what personas come into. So these templates which are given here, that can change. So these are examples of certain templates. So basically, if I am trying to build an e-commerce site, right? So probably one of my personas could be an admin who would be maintaining the inventory. So I just name that admin with some sort of a name, maybe Alex, and then try to create these details for him. So is the person whose role is an admin role, is he quite technically savvy? Will he be able to use the system? Okay, what are his day-to-day tasks in terms of maintaining the inventory, right? So what does he do? So just listing down all these things, and then the goals. So the system that I'm building, okay, how that person that's going to help this admin person, like how it's going to help Alex, right? So what is his goal of using the system? So whenever you are trying to, so basically you try to understand the end users who will be using your system, and then try to come up with what are the goals of that particular person, or what are the intentions of that particular person in using your product. So that's how personas come into the picture. And of course you need to understand from the end user's perspective. Sometimes, although we say that we are treating personas in real person, but then what you can also club here is like with these personas technique, you can also go and start interviewing end users as well. So if you get a chance, again, when I talk about interviewing end users, like definitely it's very in all kind of products we don't get a chance. So if you're probably dealing with some banking application, you probably might not get a chance to actually go and talk to your end users. But if you have different kind of a product like an e-commerce system where that okay, these are my target users, so you can always go up to them and ask them a lot of questions. So you can basically club these personas with those customer interview as well. So you can club different techniques based on your requirements and based on the situation that you're in. And eventually it's a very powerful technique, because later on when you start writing user stories, it will help you. You can always refer to these personas, because the way we write user story is like, we write from an end user's point of view. So as a user, right, that is what my template is for a user story. So when I'm stressing as an end user, so these persona will definitely help you and give you more clarity while you write user stories.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ipsita. Could you please take an example for persona?
Right. So as I was talking, right, so one of the personas could be, example, the e-commerce site, right? So now I have a very wide range of users using an e-commerce site, right? So my age range can be from 18 years to maybe 60, 65, 70. So I can have personas for each. I can have a persona for a teenage kind of a group, maybe 18, 20 years old, and I can create a persona for a set of people who are above 60. So maybe I name that. So if my name Ipshita itself, right? So if I create a persona, just see the template, maybe refer to the short template in this image here. So I just have a very fictional image, create a picture, Ipshita, right? What are the tasks and responsibilities, right? Because probably I love shopping. Okay, I'm probably at the age of around 18 to 20. So I love shopping new, lot of clothings, maybe something which is new in the market. So those are the details which I will write down, right? So something which is, I do follow fashion a lot. So probably I follow a lot of fashion trends. I'm technically very savvy. I have a lot of interest in technologies and stuffs like that. And then the other goal. So my goal of using the system is so that I get latest fashionable clothes every time. And that's the reason what I'm looking for from the e-commerce side, right? So that is what one persona comes up, and probably within this age of 18 to 20. So you get to know that, okay, if I am trying to target users within the age of around 20, 25, I also have to probably give some sort of a fashion trend follower, or sort of what is new in the market, maybe some sort of fashionable items into your product listing page, or that can be a fashion trend, could be one of the categories while searching the product into my e-commerce site. Okay, so that is one. Next persona, again, if I create, is like person who is 60 plus. So probably I'm really old, I don't have much idea about how to do an online shopping. Maybe I'm not at all technologically savvy. I don't know, I've never done shopping before. But now my only aim or goal of using the e-commerce site is because due to COVID, we are not able to go out a lot. So I have no other option but to do an online shopping. Right, that is the goal. So thinking of those customers, now when you are creating, right, the UI UX design, you have to be very much sure that you don't complicate the system. So your menus should be very much clear. The checkout process should be simple. So so as and when you get more information, this eventually helps you not only to write good user stories, but also the UI UX, how the system you're building, how simplified it should be, or what are new things or new features that needs to go in. So this gives a lot of clarity. So overall, these personas will help you to do a lot of requirement analysis. So does this clarify the your doubt?
Very much clear. Thank you for taking the example. It will
Great.
help
Yeah,
clear the persona concept.
thank you. Great. Moving forward to the product roadmap. Again, a very common technique, probably, we use a lot of tools also to ensure what the product roadmap is going to be. And it is very important that we create, as product owners, we need to create the product roadmap, because we need to give directions to the team also, right? So what my intention is, right, about the particular product. Okay, so where the product is progressing towards, okay, how the solutions are going to emerge. So all these things has to be clearly depicted in a pictorial way. So basically what features are going in, what is the path of delivery, all these things has to go in. Again, there are a lot of techniques, I would say a lot of different kinds of product roadmaps which are there. Sometimes you might see that, the very common ones, basically when we are dealing with stakeholders, we do these time based. So maybe in quarter 1 we will deliver 5 features, quarter 2 we will deliver, feature 6, 7, 8. So like that we try to deliver in terms of different quarters. Sometimes you can also do it in terms of months, whichever is convenient. And also I have, a different kind of thing that I have seen in product companies also, wherein they do not show it on a time based manner, but they, show your product roadmap in, now, next, later. So now are the work items or features that the team is working on now. Next is what is coming up, the high level epics, and later is something, just one liner epics or one liner goals that probably the product owners or the product managers will be analyzing and come up to certain points. So they don't have time based, but it's just now, next, later. But the most commonly used ones do have time based, because definitely, right, when you're dealing with stakeholders, or probably you are working for a service company, so your stakeholders or your customers will definitely want to know a date, that by when you want to release a particular feature. So the date one is very much commonly used. So some of the parameters which I have just listed down here in the picture is like, you need to have a date which tells you, right, by when you will be meeting a particular goal, right? What probably would be the name of that particular product version or release. So if you're releasing a new product version, what product version it's going to be, or sometimes you can also name that release, right? So maybe a payment integration. So that could be one release itself. Right. And what is the goal, right? What benefit that's going to give to your product? So goal is something that you need to highlight. And also, what are the high level features going into that release is something that you need to ensure. And in terms of metrics, again, this is optional. You might have, you might not have. Metrics is like, now that I'm, releasing these features, or I'm releasing one major epic, right, into the market, what is the benefit that it's going to get? So it could be like, I am probably launching the product, and I want that within 3 months of time, I have around 10,000 users registered into my platform. So that is a metric. So after 3 months, I will go and validate whether I have met that KPI or that metric. And then probably I take relevant business calls accordingly. So metrics is something which people do add just to measure that, okay, this feature has worked, or probably if you're not able to meet the metrics, maybe you haven't achieved your goal. Okay. Next one is relative estimation. Again, a very common one. The mainly what we use in our day-to-day life probably is the story point estimation that most of you have already heard about. But relative estimation is not an absolute estimation. So in relative estimation, we will never say that, okay, this user story will take 5 days to finish. It's not going to happen like that. This is just sort of a comparison that we do. And of course, we use story point estimation, which is again a different thing altogether, which is a form of relative estimation, definitely, which tells you that based on the complexity, based on the volume of work, I would estimate the story as a 5 pointer. So that doesn't mean that if I've estimated a story as 5 pointer, it will take 5 days to complete. No. So it is just based on the complexity, the volume of work. And one good thing, or probably one thing that you might always, do when you're doing relative estimation, is to have a comparison unit. So a high level way of relative estimation is like, when you're not able to do a story point estimation, you can also do it as, small, medium, large, that kind of estimate can also do. Or else probably, you just benchmark one user story. So for example, the login screen, if the login screen you think is estimated as medium, right, in terms of the team size that you have, or the complexity that is involved, maybe it's a medium story. And then going forward, whenever you are trying to analyze other stories, you always compare it with that login story, and then try to compare, you're relatively estimating it. So is that the story that you're picking up, is it more complex than the login story or less complex? If it is more, then probably you'll estimate it as large. If it is less, then probably you'll estimate it as small. So you're always trying to do a relative estimation by comparing. So comparison is the key essence in terms of relative estimation. Okay. Next, talking about retrospective, again, something which we do a lot in terms of, the sprint retrospective, which happens. So when our sprint ends, retrospective meetings are something that we do a lot. So again, it provides an opportunity for all team members to basically reflect on what has been delivered and how probably, the things have gone through. And basically, it is held at key milestone. Again, it is not necessary that we need to have retrospective meeting only at the end of the sprint. So probably, you are not following the sprint scrum process at all. Maybe you are following Kanban. Even then you can have a retrospective, because retrospective is very much important to retrospect ourselves as a team in terms of thinking as what went well, what did not go well, and coming up with points of improvement. Because at the end of the day, it's very much important for us to do the work more effectively and take learnings from what things didn't go well. So that is where retrospectives are very useful. And also ensure that every time you're doing a retrospective meeting, you have a neutral facilitator rather than having somebody from the team itself. Because on a very practical note, what even most of you will agree, and what I've also seen, that if you have people within the team itself, they tend to defend each other in terms of what didn't go well, and then eventually it becomes a very chaotic blame game kind of a situation. So it's always important that somebody neutral, maybe the scrum master or the product owner or the business analyst hosting these, and so that you're able to clearly identify your areas of improvement, because that is what the main motive is for retrospective meetings. Okay. Next, talking about the reviews. So definitely the sprint reviews that happens, right? So again, it's a way to inspect and check that the increment of the solution that we are building is aligns with the requirement. So whatever we have built in the 2 weeks of sprint, for example, we try to demonstrate those to the stakeholders and then take feedback from them. So that is our formal sprint review. Sometimes you can also have informal meetings, right? So probably you are, as a developer, I've just built something and I just want to have a quick feedback from my stakeholders. So I can even set up informal meetings as well. Or maybe I'm in the stand up, I can just ask my stakeholder that, can you just extend for 5 more minutes? I need to demonstrate something. So that is also absolutely okay, right? And the main aim again is to ensure that whatever is the requirement and whatever I have built as a developer, that those are aligned. So that's the reason we have that. And of course, during the sprint review meeting, you do have the stakeholders, you have product owners, and you have customer representatives or business owners as well, giving you feedback in such meetings. And again, the feedback that you get, those can be added into the product backlog and later on prioritized by the product owner. So it's not necessary that whatever feedback you get, then and there you have to start, working on it. That's not the case. You collect the feedback and then you add it into your backlog and try to prioritize them. So that is what it is. Unless your story is completely rejected because you have implemented something very different than what's been asked for. Okay. Next, we have story decomposition. Now, this technique clubs very well in with my backlog refinement meeting, right? Because my backlog refinement meeting is a place wherein you're detailing down the stories. Now, while detailing down, you do realize that, okay, this is becoming quite big, right? So it's advisable that you break them into smaller chunks. So it basically helps you to break the requirement into smaller level of granularity so that it can be easily completed within a sprint duration, which usually is 2 week sprint that people follow, depends on projects to projects. So how you're basically breaking down the stories is, we use the breadth before the depth concept. So sorry, going back, yes. So I have my product goal, right? Now from that product goal or the product vision, so the first thing to do for the product owner is to basically list down all the high level features of that particular product. Now from that feature, you start breaking the story. Now probably I've created the story of that particular feature, and then you start breaking more, those stories into smaller chunks. So one particular key feature can basically have multiple stories. So it's very well goes with, so you have an epic created, and within an epic you have around 6 to 7 stories, for example. So that epic is nothing but the high level feature, and the smaller stories which have been broken down are basically all the stories which are needed for you to deliver that epic. So that's how you break the story, or that's how you do your story decomposition. Okay. Again, on a similar lines, we have story mapping as well. Okay. So how does this work? So what we do is, again, we have the high level user stories added on the top, right, with the time constant, definitely. And then from those high level stories, you are trying to decompose them. So maybe high level epics, I would say, which are the boxes in the dark blue or the dark teal color. And then you break them down into stories. And then those stories, you're again breaking them down into smaller ones. So this story mapping, I would say, is basically time consuming, because you are creating this entire story map for the complete product. And you, even if you have done this, you have to be very much mindful that every now and then you have to come and update it, because as I said in the backlog refinement meeting, right, things will keep changing. So basically, if I'm breaking them or decomposing into more smaller stories, I will also have to ensure that I come back to the story map and update it. So at times it becomes a little cumbersome, but at the end of the day, it's like, one pictorial view of all the stories which are there into the, or which are needed for the product. And maybe it also helps in planning the releases as well, so that you know that, okay, this feature, these are the stories which are going. So this pictorial view does help to some extent, but on a very practical sense, this becomes a little cumbersome. So it's used to understand, the solution from an end-to-end view, and then drilling them down into smaller stories. That is story map. And then visioning, again, visioning, as I said, that the product vision is something that is decided by the product owner. So it tells you what the desired outcome of that product is. So it's the typical product vision, if you see, so a vision for Apple, or maybe an iPhone, right? So that punchline that they would add for that product, so that is nothing but that is how your product is intended to work. So maybe any kind of a musical system that probably Samsung is launching, so those things, maybe a better camera that probably iPhone is probably launching. So though that becomes the product vision for that, so probably they would add a great punchline to it, and that particular release for that product has a the product vision. So that's how you uh, understand what that iPhone 14 is intended to do, for example, right? So this tells you or gives you a shared understanding of what the organization wants, or what the initiative is all about. Again, this visioning technique is something that probably we might not do it very often, because if we are working for some sort of a customers, the customers themselves would have already done this visioning, and then it would have come to us. But more or less, this is a good technique, like if you're working for a core product company, maybe Facebook or Google, then probably you can some point in time use this as well.